Ben Robinson was just 14 when he died as a result of concussion. During the final minute of his school rugby match, he collapsed, fell unconscious and never woke up.
There's a culture around rugby where, you know, you take it on the chin and you play on and man up, all these terms. Ben saying, I can't remember the last tackle. They even laughed about it, and Ben himself laughed about it, you know, feeling, I can't remember it, as if it was a joke. And now they realise that was an opportunity. Concussion can be fatal. When I say that, people look at me as if, oh, you know, it's the truth. As simple as that, you know, and, you know, I have a death certificate to prove it.
Concussion in rugby is a topical issue at the moment, due to the RFU trying to raise awareness about concussion due to the recent death of 14-year-old Ben Robinson. This documentary will find out what concussion is, the risk of playing on with concussion, and the pressure on players to hide concussion. To achieve this, a professional rugby player, a former Newcastle Falcons doctor, and an expert in pain and injury in sport were interviewed.
Concussion is a brain injury that occurs due to forces that occur across the brain. Commonly it's something that we consider in sport, and so it is a brain injury, although a lot of the investigations that might be done might not show up any injury, but it is an injury all the same, and it's defined by a set of symptoms that occur in relation to that injury. One end of the spectrum, someone might be knocked out completely, so someone might be unconscious, and that's usually transient, lasting a number of seconds. When the person has first had the concussive injury, they might be quite incapacitated, but they very rapidly come around.
When it happened, I was pretty groggy, quite dizzy. Other than that, after the game, I pretty much nearly fell asleep straight away, and just generally sort of headachy and didn't feel great.
So the diagnosis of concussion is usually based on looking out for those the typical symptoms, and also an assessment of a player in terms of how they look. Obviously, if they are quite dazed or if they're unsteady on their feet, that would be quite a major determinant of deeming a concussion. And there have been some more formal questions that have been developed to diagnose concussion. They're known as the Maddox questions after a research project. So you ask a number of questions that are defined. It's usually 6 or 8 questions, asking the player about recent memory. So they're questions like, which team are you playing against? What's the score? Which half are you in? Who did you play last week? And they're sort of recent memory questions that are a defining aspect of concussion immediately after the injury.
Yeah, I think it's a really good policy to implement, because rugby players are always, especially when it's the career, are always going to look to rush back. And obviously you can't see any signs of the injury, so it can be really dangerous if you go back before you're sort of fit to play.
There are always stigmas that exist with types of injuries where you can't literally see, as they say in America, the sort of the bone sticking out the meat. I mean, there are very clear, visible signs of certain injuries, whereas others, often athletes talk about having to go on the sort of pursuit of convincing doctors and teammates and coaches particularly that they are unfit.
There is a condition called second impact syndrome, where if a further head injury occurs within a short period of time after the first one, there can be quite a catastrophic sequence of events that leads to sudden death, and there have been some cases reported in terms of that. So they're the sort of life-threatening concerns about it. After that, we worry about if players continue with concussion, they're more likely to injure themselves and other people on the field. And then, again, very topical at the moment is whether long-term multiple head injuries lead to brain degeneration and dementia in later life.
Yeah, I have actually, not when I was at Durham, but when I was playing for a local club, I actually played on and then played the week after as well, without seeing a doctor.
Yeah, there's huge pressure. I mean, basically, as most people know, there's a mandatory period that you're disqualified from playing. So actually, to say someone's concussed has huge implications. So I think there is a lot of pressure not to diagnose a concussion, both formally pressure on medical staff and also from players themselves know that if they admit to a concussion they're going to be out for 21 and now if you're younger 23 days and so people don't want to miss their sport so they conceal it.
Plenty of the players will not want to drop out because they fear for their place in the team. They don't want to be seen to be letting their teammates down.
I did some work over 10 years ago at Newcastle Falcons Rugby Club that showed that well over 50% of players have concealed concussions and certainly have observed it in their teammates. And I think for a number of years it's been part of sport, particularly rugby, that if you're a man you'll play on. Concussion's part of the game and it's a rough game and there's all sorts of injuries. I think the problem is playing on with a sprained ankle is one thing, but playing on with a head injury has really quite significant consequences potentially, not just for the brain injury but other parts of the body, as I said earlier, to other people on the field of play. So the answer to your question is yes, definitely it's part and parcel of sport to play on with injury in general and concussion in particular.
Well, it's a really big match, it's a cup match from a club, and so sort of the size of the game meant that there was pressure on me to play, and so I decided to play. Well, I suppose rugby's a pretty tough game, pretty hard sport, like contact-wise and very physical, and so you don't want to really appear soft, especially when it's not a visible injury, and so people may underestimate how the sort of extent of your injury, which is pretty bad, and also it's team sport, so there's a lot of pressure from both your teammates and your coaches to really sort of deliver a performance every week, so you quite often feel as if you should play as well as wanting to play just through enjoyment of the game.
Athletes from a very young age start to receive particular types of messages, particularly from key role models in their lives, their parents, PE teachers, coaches, other players around them, that you get up and you play on. And they're really strong messages that they hear, and they're hearing very consistent messages of that kind from almost all the people within their networks, their rugby clubs, their football clubs, athletics clubs, wherever it might be. You get up and you play on.